Our little fairy villages are always a hit, and we wanted to do something Valentine's related to kind of add to the collection of little houses that we have. And today we're going to put together our little Loveland cottage, which would make for a great little centerpiece for Valentine's Day, or just a nice little piece of home decor. Obviously, just like a lot of our little structures, you can add a little submersible tea light, the one that we recommend. There's a link to it actually in the app under our go-to tools. So if you're looking for that, you can find it there. Head over to either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and do a search for Dreaming Tree. Look for our logo, download it, and you'll find a wealth of information there, as well as links to our commonly used products. But anyway, let's just jump right in here. We're going to start off by putting together the little base that our little cottage sits on. And I have it here in front of me. I've already gone ahead and pre-folded everything at the score marks. And it's a simple little rectangle, a dimensional one. And it's pretty straightforward to put together. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin by putting glue on one of the little triangular tabs here. And it doesn't really matter which side you start on. I'm going to start on this side, the side that has this large piece attached, just because there's a little extra weight there, and I just want to make sure that I get that part in place first. And I have this folded over so that I can kind of grab it like this and squeeze it more easily, where if this was hanging over this way, you couldn't really get your finger in there. So try to do that if you can, and just connect that little tab that we just put glue on to the wall of this side here. Okay. And then we'll move on over to this tab here. And you can always kind of move things out of the way if you need to. And just throw a little bit of glue on that tab, and then bring this wall in, get it nice and lined up, and give it a squeeze. And just hold that for a moment or two. You want to be a little more patient with this side just because of all that extra weight. Okay. And that just leaves two more tabs, and then we can close it up. And just as I usually do, I'm going to kind of begin with some simple things just to kind of get in the groove. I think the most important thing to do when we're working on a project like this is just to be confident. Just approach it with a I can do this sort of attitude and follow along step by step. We'll do one thing at a time, one tab at a time. There's really nothing that you can't do. Okay, so I just put glue on that tab here. I'm going to flip this down and connect it to this wall. And just press and hold that in place. Give that a few moments to dry. When we're working on structural things like this, it's just important to be patient and let that glue really get a hold before you move on, so that we don't have to go back and redo anything. Because once that glue is on there, if it comes apart, second time around, trying to put glue on that same tab may prove to be a little bit more difficult, because now we're not just dealing with the paper fibers, but we're dealing with a glossy surface. We're trying to put glue on top of glue, and that can be a little more trying. Okay, so I've got glue on that tab. I'm going to slide that behind this wall and just press and hold. And there we have our little structure pretty much done. Just need to put our top on it, or the bottom in this case. So give that a second to set. And I'm really pushing and squeezing really hard to get that glue to kind of soak in. Okay. All right, so that just leaves three tabs, three large tabs. And I have a feeling here that my glue is not gonna, well, it's actually cooperating. That's good. All right, so let's get our glue on these three tabs here. And I'm kind of hitting the meat of the tab my first go around. And then I'll go around one more time and put a thin little line right up to the very edge. And for my Dreaming Tree veterans, you know that I'm going to take my finger, and you can use a finger, you can use a piece of paper, whatever it is you want to use, and just kind of spread that glue out to the edges of this tab here, so that when we do close this up, it'll be well, it'll look nice and seamless. All right, so we're gonna close this up and focus on aligning this with this edge here. And then the rest of it should just kind of fall into place. Just make sure you get it nice and centered. And if you need to kind of pull on it a little bit to bring it towards you, you can do that. And if you need to nudge any of these walls in a little bit, you can do that as well. And then just a nice, easy downward force around the perimeter here, just to make sure that everything is making good contact. Let that set. Give that a moment. And if you see any little areas where it might be lifting up, just give it a little extra love. Just like that. And this is, even though it's kind of the top right now, once all said and done, we're actually going to flip this over and this will be the bottom. So no one's really going to see this, but you still want to try to do your best. Okay. And I've got a couple little areas that aren't sitting completely flat. I'll show you. I'm not afraid to show you that I'm human. There, you can see that. So grab a piece of scrap paper and throw a little bit of glue right on the very edge of it and slide it in between these two layers and then kind of push it up and paint a little bit of extra glue in that little area that's not staying down, and then press and hold that down and let that set. And then that way it'll look nice and pristine. And I've got one more little nook here that isn't really playing nice. So I'll do the same thing, throw a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper, paint it on the underside of that little section, and press that down and hold it in place for just a few extra seconds while it sets. And there we go. Now we've got a nice looking little platform. So this was the section we just pushed down. We're gonna flip it over. This is gonna be our top. Okay. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is, we've got a few more little pieces here. We're gonna create a little lip so that when we put our house on our base, it doesn't go flying all over the place. And then we've got a nice little overlay that's going to go around the perimeter of this piece. And that's going to make it look nice and polished. Okay, so I suppose we can do this in a couple of different ways. All right, so let's construct our little lip. So this is our little lip here. We've got two pieces that look exactly the same. There's a tiny little tab on one side. And what we're going to do is going to put some glue. Let me grab a different bottle here. All right, so let's begin by putting a little bit of glue on this tab here. It's very easy. And I just put a new lid on my glue bottle, so I got to kind of readjust the feel for it, okay? So I'm going to take this other side here and just place it right on top of that tab. I'm going to kind of nudge this over as close to those little score marks as I can possibly get without going over. And I'll press that down, and I'm going to fold it over on top of itself. And in doing so, just kind of checking the alignment here. We don't want it like that. We want it to be right on top of the other one, so everything's nice and flush here. And that's a good indicator that we've got it nicely lined up. Okay, so now we'll go over here to the other side on this tab, and we're going to connect this to the other end to make this all one continuous piece. Okay, and just grab that other end and connect it, get it nice and lined up, and give that a squeeze. You can kind of fold it over onto itself. It should lay flat. There we go, just like that. And we've got our little piece. Now we want to take these other tabs here and flare them out, like so. Okay. And there we go, just like that. Okay, so what we'll do next is grab these two pieces. Okay, this first one is going to go right on here like so. Okay, it's just kind of to reinforce it. And then, all right, so before we do that, actually, what we want to do is kind of slide this through a little hole here. And if you're kind of noticing that it's not fitting, rotate it. Just rotate it 90 degrees. Slide it through. It should fit in there nicely, just like that. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take these tabs and we're going to glue them to the underside of this section here. So just a little bit of glue goes a long way here. You don't need a lot. Don't need to worry about painting it out to the very edges or anything like that. Okay, so I've got my glue on that tab, and I'm going to fold it over onto the back side or the underside of this piece. And I'm going to put this on my table and press down like this. It just makes it a lot easier. Okay, then we can head on over to the next tab, and actually it may be helpful to kind of jump to the opposite side of the side that we just glued down. Throw a little bit of glue on that tab, fold it over right onto the underside of this piece, and press down. Oh, I feel like I have something under here. Oh, because I do. Okay. And that just leaves 2 more tabs. So let's do the same thing to this guy here. It's a nice thin line of glue. And then press that down into place like so. And the last tab here. There we go. I might put a little bit too much on there, so wipe some of that off. Press that down onto the piece, and I can push down from the top to get that to really stick. There we go. Okay, so now it's up to you if you want to do this now or later. This piece is going to go over this piece like this. Okay, but we do need to glue that down. So let's take this off for just a moment and apply our glue to this whole piece here. Get that glue out to the very edges. And especially here in this little strip. There we go. I think what I might be noticing is that my glue sits around too long. It sort of maybe dries out even in the bottle. I just popped some new glue in there and it's not drying as quickly. So maybe that is a tip that I should offer when I do my video on gluing. Okay, so we're going to slide that over the existing little section here and just press that down, get it into place like so. Should fit pretty precisely. There we go. Okay, so this section is pretty much done. Now we're going to glue this to this piece here, and it doesn't matter if you do it on this side or this side. You can always just rotate it. The only thing we'll need to pay attention to is when we put the little surrounding sections on here, I have to pay attention to where we position those. Okay, so let's get our glue on this piece here. Get that glue out to the edges. There we go. And throw a little bit on these tab sections as well. Okay, and then just pop that down right onto your platform. Make sure it's nice and centered. And just run your finger along the perimeter. Help that glue make good contact with our platform. Okay, just like that. I do feel like this new glue bottle is just working a lot better. So maybe this glue needs to have an expiration date on it. I don't think it does, but it probably should. Okay, so let's check our work, kind of go around the perimeter, make sure everything's making good contact, and that looks great. That came out very nice. Okay, so now we've got these little sections here. And you'll notice that, well, we've got these little hearts on one of the sides. So what we're going to do, the hearts are going to be up at the front of our little base, like this. Okay, so you can see, and there's little tabs here, or not tabs, but just little score marks where this folds over and kind of begins on this side too. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to glue this part down first. Okay, and then we'll put the back on last. So grab the front And again, these hearts, you want to put those on the front here, so there's a little bit more of a gap here than there is back here. This is the front. Okay, so let's do that. And you only need to put glue on the straight section here. You don't need to put any glue on the actual hearts. So don't worry about putting glue there, just on this flat, straight section here. And it's kind of helpful to maybe just even use your table as a guide. So just kind of lay it down flat on your table. Make sure you get it nice and centered. And then kind of push down a little bit just to make sure that everything is nice and flush. And then run your finger along the front. Just make sure everything's making good contact. Just like that. Okay. And now these little sections here, you just need to throw a tiny little bit of glue right about here so that we can fold this over onto the side. Just make sure again that it's nice and flush on the bottom. Okay, there we go. You can see that nicely. Same thing on the other side. Just throw a tiny little bit of glue right at that bottom part. You don't need to go up past where this section is. And press and hold that in place. Just like that. Okay, beautiful. So far so good. Now this piece here, this piece is just the back. There's no folds on it whatsoever. This piece does have a little fold, okay, and the rest of this does not have a fold, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna glue this on like this, okay, and you can see that there's a little bit of the heart that we'll need to add some glue to so that it can get glued to the existing little heart section from the other side. Okay, so let's do this. Let's start by putting glue on this section here, and then we'll maybe just kind of do this in segments. So I'll put glue right up to maybe where the hearts are, like that. Okay, and I'll put that down on my table using this little area here that is folded as kind of a guide. Okay, and just kind of run that along the very bottom. Make sure it's nice and flush and lined up. And there we go. Okay, now we can kind of peel this back a little bit and add our glue to the bottom section, and then just on this part of the heart, the part that matches up with this section here, lay that right on there, and it should connect nicely with the existing heart there from the front. There we go. And just press and hold that in place. There we go. That looks nice. We do have another overlay that's going to go over that. And in the meantime here, this little section here, you can throw a little dot of glue, fold that over onto the back. There we go. And just repeat the same process on this end. So I'll throw a little bit of glue, and I actually probably do the whole thing. We'll get glue on this entire strip, and then a little bit right up to the very edge here, and up the heart about halfway down the center there. Okay, and pop that right on there. Make sure it's nice and flush, and that it connects nicely to that piece that was part of the front. There we go. That looks nice. Okay, so we can go over here, throw a tiny little bit of glue on that little tab. Maybe dab that a bit and fold that over. And that just leaves the back, this little strip here. And just make sure that you get that glue out to the very edge of this section here so that it doesn't come peeling off. And pop that right on the back. Make sure it's nice and centered, nice and flush with the rest of the base. You can kind of run your fingers along both the top and the bottom to get a feel for whether or not it is in fact flush. Mine looks pretty good. And there we go. That looks good. Beautiful. Okay, so now, just to finish this thing off, we do have a little overlay that's going to go on the little corners here. Okay, so just need to get our glue pretty much on this entire little piece and just pop that into place. Go very easy on the glue here and try to hit as much of the surface of these little hearts as you can. I wouldn't coat it too much. A little bit's going to go a long way. It's a very small piece. It doesn't need that much glue to stay in place, but obviously you need some. Okay, so I would kind of just align this right on the very corner first. Make sure that it's flush at the bottom, and then just press that down onto the existing hearts that are there. And just kind of press that with your fingers, kind of sandwich it like that. And the same thing on this side. There we go. And give those a good squeeze right up at the top. Let's take a look at that. That looks nice. Okay. And we'll repeat that for the other side, and our base will be complete. Definitely try to make sure that you get some glue up at the top of the hearts and down at the bottom. Okay. Just like that. And I kind of crease it in the center. Lay it down right on that little crease. Get it nice and centered. Make sure that it's nice and flush at the bottom there as well. And then just kind of squeeze that onto the existing sections that are there. Make sure it's making good contact. You can always go back in and fix it if you've got a little area that maybe didn't get enough glue or whatnot. And I think that looks nice. All right, cool. So that is that. Our base is ready for our little cottage once we get to that point. Okay, so let's start working on the actual cottage itself. Now, we're going to do some paper piecing stuff first, just to kind of get some things out of the way. And then we'll work on the actual structure itself. Okay, so first thing I want to do is, well, there's a little door, okay, and the little door has this section here that we're going to end up pop dotting using some foam squares to kind of bring it out and give it a little bit of dimension. So to get that prepared, we just want to glue, in my case, this is a white glitter piece. We're going to glue that to the piece that is just behind it here, the purple one. So let's get our glue on to this section here. Work a little bit of that glue around those little scallops with the little cutouts. Go easy on the glue here. You don't want it squirting out. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to kind of focus my gaze here on the center heart there at the top and make sure that's aligned along with this little design there. And then just kind of work my fingers down and make sure that everything is nice and lined up, and then give that a press. Okay, so again, this is going to be dotted, pop dotted onto the main face of our little cottage once all said and done. Okay, so that's fine. We can put that off to the side for now. And let's take a look at the face of our little house here. So we've got 2 layers. Okay, so here's layer 1, here's layer 2. We're going to glue these on top of each other. Okay, and yeah. And then we'll put the little door on there as well. So just make sure that you've got the right one, because the front and the back of the house are a little bit different. the back looks like this. You can see the difference in the cutouts. Okay, so just make sure you grab the right one when you're gluing this down. And I've got a lot of little details on here, especially these little scallops. I would not expect you to be able to get this all glued down perfectly in one shot. I'm going to do my best, and then I'll probably have to grab my scrap piece of paper and go in and maybe clean up some of the little scalloped areas and just kind of paint a little bit of glue into those little nooks and crannies here, because it's quite a lot of little detail to get to before your glue starts to dry out. So don't put too high of an expectation on yourself to get this all done in one shot. It's I don't think any human could do this unless you're using like a spray adhesive, but I don't. Those things make me feel sick when I use them, so I stay away. Okay, all right. So let's just lay this down onto this piece here, kind of give it a little nudge, make sure that everything is lined up nicely. Okay, that looks pretty darn good, I'd say, and then press that down. Well, I must be superhuman today because everything kind of fell into place and I don't really have anything that is not sticking. So I guess it is possible, but maybe it's because I went into this feeling confident today. All right, so let's add some of the nice little embellishments that we have for the front of our house. We'll begin with the little overlays for the windows. So let's get our glue onto the back of this and just kind of work that glue out to the edge, maybe a little bit down, the little cross hairs here in the center, and just match that up. Kind of focusing my gaze here on the little heart at the bottom, and then working my way up towards the center where we have that little cross, and just pop that into place. Now I did hit this white glitter with a little bit of light blue ink, just to kind of give it a little extra oomph. Okay, same thing on the other side. We'll get that in place. And I kind of like doing this in this fashion, meaning just kind of working on the paper piecing stuff first while everything's nice and flat, getting rid of some of the pieces so that all that's left is the stuff we need to create the actual structure itself. Just kind of a little assembly line here, a nice methodical process. Okay, so that goes there. And now we do have a tiny little heart, and you'll notice that there's some little indicators here on where the heart goes. It's a tiny little guy. We'll just throw a little bit of glue right on the back and use those little guides to help you position that and get that nice and centered. Whoops. There we go. And press that into place. Okay. And next, we've got the little door here, and you can kind of see where that goes because we've got a nice little cutout here. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Just get our glue onto the back. And this is a foil piece, so I'm going to throw a little extra glue on this. Just like that. And just match that up with the existing little cutout there. Get it nice and centered. The door should be pretty much flush with the bottom of this entire structure. And then just press that down into place. And we've got one more little panel or overlay that goes right here. You'll notice that there are some little markers to help you with the positioning of this piece here. Let me grab that. Okay, and it kind of goes like this. The wider section is up at the top, and it kind of gets thinner as it goes down. So just make sure you do that correctly. Just like that, and use those little markers as a guide to help you get it nice and centered. And I had a little bit of glue spew out of there. That's okay, just wipe it off as soon as you can. Okay, great. All right, so as I mentioned, we'll do this later once everything's put together so that we don't mess anything up, but this is gonna get pop dotted right onto the front. Okay, we're gonna throw a little heart rhinestone there to act as the little doorknob. So that's done, that's done. Now we've got the back of our little house here, and I just wanna check something out here. That looks good. Do the same thing we did the first time. Do our best to get our glue on this entire surface here. I'm kind of starting around the perimeter. I'm not touching the scallop section just yet. And then work a little bit on the inside here, right through the little cross. And now, I'm just gonna kind of work these little scallops here. It kind of helps to, when you're gluing, if you're gluing something that has a repetitive pattern, it's kind of good to do that all in one shot, because then your muscle memory kind of kicks in and you start, it's easier to kind of repeat the same motion with your fingers or your hands. Okay, so get that nice and lined up as accurately as you can. Kind of give things a little nudge if they seem a little out of place, and just press that down. And we'll see if I can go 2 for 2 here as far as gluing this down. That would be a victory in itself. There we go. Okay, let's check our work. And, well, you know, that worked out nicely. I think it's not bad. Okay, all right, so now we've got this little overlay here, and you'll notice that the little cross here is a little bit thicker here than it is here, so make sure that you don't put it on the wrong way. Okay, let's get that on there. And that will be it for the front and the back. And we can begin putting together the main structure here in just a moment. And then after that, we've got a little, oops, oh geez. We've got a little chimney that we need to construct. I suppose we could probably do that next. There we go. And I'll wipe that glue up before it gets all over the place. There we go. Okay, it may be helpful to maybe tuck this underneath your mat so that it doesn't warp and dries nice and flat. Let's just do that. I'm rhyming like crazy here. You know what, let's do our little chimney real quick just to get that out of the way, and then we'll just leave the main structure and we'll be on the home stretch. Okay, so I've already kind of pre-folded this, as you can see, and you'll notice that there's a series of tabs on one side and then some other weird looking tabs. They're not weird, they're just different. These are the little tabs that we're going to use to actually adhere the chimney to the main structure. So these are actually going to be folded outward like that. Okay, but for now, all we need to do is put some glue on this tab here. So let's do that. Get that glue out to the very edge. I'm going to kind of hit that with my finger, thin it out, make sure it's spread out all the way, and then just grab that and join it to the opposite side. Okay, you can actually do this flat. I just literally flattened it out in half. And just make sure that you've got it nice and aligned. You can put that down on your surface too. That always helps. And there we go. So we're just creating a little box. Essentially, it's just a little box. And then to close this up, we've got these 3 little tabs here. So we'll apply our glue to the 3 tabs. And for stuff like this, I'll just put little dots of glue on here and then use my finger to kind of spread it out to the edges, thin it out, so it covers every little nook and cranny there. And then fold this over and try to line it up with the side opposite of the side that this piece is already hinged on. Get it nice and centered, press that down, and then you can kind of hold it completely from the top. I'm pushing down pretty much on every little surface area there. Okay, and then you can actually put this down on your surface, move these out of the way, and then if you have a little dowel handy or a pen or whatever, you can push down from the inside to get the rest of those tabs to really make good contact. And it'll keep it together for us nicely, just like that. Now we don't want to do anything with these. These tabs we're going to need later on to get this to stick inside of the little structure. But what we do want to do next is grab this little piece, and this is a nice little trim piece for the top of our chimney, and that's just going to wrap around the very top. We want the top of this piece here to be flush with the top of the actual chimney, just like that. Okay, so best way to put this on would be to start somewhere in the center, one of the two center pieces. Throw a little bit of glue right on one of these sections. Make sure you don't overdo it with the glue there. And then just pick a side, doesn't matter which one, and glue that on. You can kind of grab and fold over the other sides here just to make sure that you've got it nice and centered. And press and hold that in place for a moment. Make sure that it ain't going nowhere. And once that's anchored in place, we can move on to the other three sections and get those glued in place. So at this point, I'm just going to put glue on the remaining two sections here. Make sure that you get a little bit of glue out to the very edge of this section here, and then just wrap that around and focus on making sure that it's nice and flush at the top. And just press and hold that in place while it sets. And rather than having smoke come out of this little chimney, we've got some little hearts coming out. There's a lot of love coming out of this little cottage. Okay, and we can close it up here with this last section. Throw a little bit of glue right on there. Make sure you get some out to the very edge, and just fold that over. Make sure it's nice and flush at the top, and just hold that down in place until it's fully set. Okay, there we go. It's all in the little details. It really just kind of sets it off and makes it look nice. Okay, so there's our little chimney. Now, this is the little set of hearts that I mentioned. And what we're going to do, one side has some paper piecings on there that we're going to layer on there. The other side is just blank. Now, we were going to put a little score mark there, but it kind of would have made it, well, pretty weak at that little segment. So rather than having a score line, all you're going to do is just fold this right there where this little section meets the first heart. Okay, so you saw how I did that. Just fold that. Do your best to get that nice and folded. If you need to, grab a little bone folder or something. I use my little silhouette scraper tool to make a nice defined crease there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Just fold that and give that a good crease, just like that. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to glue this back to back, but we're not going to put glue on the bottom, this little tab thing that I'm using to hold this up. So just on the heart section. Okay, so let's get our glue on just one of these sides here. Make sure you get that glue out to the edges so everything looks nice and seamless. There we go. And then just lay that other one right on top of this piece so they're back to back. Match it up so everything lines up nicely. And give that a good squeeze. Now I'm gluing foil to foil. The inside's very glossy and slippery, so may need to give it a few extra moments to really dry before we move on. And this part here is going to need a little extra love. So I'm going to throw a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper, just like I always do, and just kind of paint a little bit of glue into the section here that is not wanting to stick. And then I'll press and hold that down. Now, some of you have used clothespins to kind of keep things together. I've not tried that method yet, but it does seem like it would be very helpful to kind of hold things down while you work on other things. So that's a handy little idea that I've seen some of you do. Okay. So you know what, I'm gonna probably, yeah, that looks good. Okay, so now eventually what's gonna happen is we're gonna put this on our chimney like this, and we want the hearts to be coming out to the left, okay? So you don't want them like this, you want them coming out to the left towards the center of the house. The chimney's gonna be on the right-hand side of the house. With that said, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our little overlay pieces onto this side. The back side is going to be blank. Just the front side is going to have something on it. Okay, and first piece that you're going to want to put in place, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Yep, okay, so this is our first piece here, this long piece. Well, it's the longest, it's not very long, but let's get our glue on the back of this. And we're going to glue this right to, it's going to go right at the bottom here, like so. Okay, just like that. Just like that. Okay, that looks good. Next, we'll grab, in my case, this purple piece, and that's going to go right here. So get a little bit of glue on the back of this guy. Like so. And pop that into place, like that. And then I've got a glitter heart here, a white glitter. That's going to go right there, all the way up to the right on top of my purple piece. Okay, right there. And we have one more little white piece that's going to go right up here at the very end. So let's throw a little bit of glue on this guy. You only need a few little dots on this thing. It's a really tiny piece. Doesn't need a lot to hold. Okay, and that's going to go right at the very edge, very end, I should say. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm thinking that we'll probably put this on last, so that when we're actually affixing this to the structure, we don't inadvertently knock this off or rip it off or whatnot. So, but that is going to go on like that. That's a cute little touch. We'll put that off to the side for now. We'll put the chimney off to the side for now, and we can begin putting together our main structure. So we don't really have a lot of pieces left. We've got our little vellum here. We've got our main structures, and then we've got our little skeleton pieces and a couple of panels that go on the side to make it look nice and smooth. All right, so with that said, what we can go ahead and do is, first off, we're gonna need to connect these two sections together. Now you'll notice that on this side, the side that has the little hole, this is where our chimney's gonna go. Right up at the top here, there's a tab with the letter T on it. That indicates top. I'm gonna put this on this side. And then on this piece here, we don't have a little cutout for a chimney, but we do have a letter T for top. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to join these two pieces together at the tab. So let's do that. Get your glue. Let me clean off this glue tip. It's gross. Get our glue onto this tab, and then I'm also going to throw a little line of glue right out to the edge. I want this to, now that we're working on the actual structure, we want to make sure that we are as accurate as we can be. Okay, so I'm going to literally just put this down flat on my table, and this section here, I'm going to kind of nudge that up, right up to the little score marks. You don't want to go over them, you want them to be like right next to them. Okay, and then we can fold this over onto itself at the seam. And you'll notice that when we fold it over, these tabs here, they kind of sit right on top of each other perfectly. And that is a good indicator that we have it perfectly lined up. I mean, you're always going to be off by a little bit, so don't be hard on yourself. But that is a pretty good indicator that we're pretty darn close. Okay. All right, so now we have this one piece, one solid piece, and we're going to fold it in this way because you can see this is kind of the heart shape that we're going for. And we're going to begin, and let's see, it doesn't matter if we start on the front or the back. This is the cutout for the front. This is the cutout for the back. Doesn't really matter where we start, but what we're going to do is we're going to literally glue these tabs to the face of this little skeleton piece. And this piece is just to help us form this shape. So it doesn't matter that we're not putting the tab behind, because ultimately the two sections that we already created are going to go over this anyway, and that's going to hide everything. This just makes things a lot easier. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start by anchoring this using these two tabs here. You may want to do one at a time. I'm going to try to do two, and if that doesn't work, then I'll just do one, but put a little bit of glue right onto these two tabs. Okay, then we're going to fold them down. I'm going to bring this piece in, and I'm going to work flat in just a minute, but for now, since I'm just kind of starting this off, make sure that you've got it wedged in there nicely, and just kind of hold that in place while one of these tabs sets, and then do the same with the other one. Okay, just make sure that it's wedged in there as far as it'll go. And just press and hold that down for a moment. Just like that. Now if you want, you can put this down on your surface like that and then push from the inside. That's how we're going to do the rest of this. I just wanted to make sure that I had everything aligned. So those first two tabs should be glued in place now. And I'm checking the rest of the alignment here, making sure that everything's matching up nicely, and it is. So that's a good indicator that I got it right where I needed it to be. Okay, so let's take a look at the front here. And you can see these two tabs are glued down. So I'm just gonna work one side at a time, I think. Okay, I'm gonna fold these tabs over, and we'll just do a little bit of glue on each of these tabs here. I'm going to try to do 4. Okay. I'll just get my glue on this tab here. Then we can fold these back over. And then I'm actually going to flip this over. Now you can see these tabs that I put glue on there. I'm going to tuck those underneath. And then I'm going to press down from the inside to get those glued into place. Okay, and then I'll show you the front here in a second once everything's in place. And that just makes it so much easier. Okay, so you can see how the tabs are now glued to the surface, the face of this little skeleton piece. So now I'm gonna fold these tabs back and apply my glue to the next 4. I think we can do 4 at a time. You could probably do more if you're feeling confident. I just don't want to go too fast. Okay, so again, make sure you tuck those under and just slide them right underneath. And you'll notice that this little skeleton piece, it's not round, it's actually, you know, it's got lines. And that's to kind of help you make sure that you've got the right section and that the section's nice and aligned. This section here, nice and aligned with this little skeleton piece. Okay, and that looks great. So that just leaves 3 more tabs here to finish off the bottom. And then we just have to repeat the same thing on the left side of our house. Okay, now remember we just fold these over, and here they are right now. Just tuck those in, and that met up perfectly right up at the bottom. So that's a good indicator that we got everything beautifully lined up. And there we go. Okay, so there we have one side complete, and now we're just going to repeat the same process on the other side. It may be actually easier just to do it like this. Okay, whatever feels good, whatever feels right, just go for it. I'm putting glue on, I'm going to do 4 tabs at a time. So I've got glue on the next 4 tabs, and I'm just going to push them underneath And as I'm kind of pushing, I'm pushing towards me, or pushing up against the wall here while I'm pushing down from the inside with my finger. So I'm kind of making sure that it's really making good contact with this little skeleton piece here while I'm pushing down. Just keeping everything nice and lined up. There we go. Beautiful, that looks good. So now we can flare these tabs out. I think that one actually came loose, but that's okay. Throw glue on the next set of tabs here. I've got 4. And we're going to tuck those underneath our little skeleton piece. And I'm pushing in from the outside while I'm pushing down onto those tabs there. Make sure everything gets glued. There we go. Take a look at our work. Good. And that just leaves 4 more tabs here. So I think I did have one that kind of came undone, but that's okay. That's going to happen. Or it might not. All right, so I've got glue on the last 4 tabs here. I'm going to tuck those underneath the little skeleton piece. And as I'm pushing in with my hand here, I'm pushing down with my finger to get that all in place. And that looks good. There we go. Okay, so there's our structure. And now all that's left to do is take the other side of this. Let me make sure I did this right. I did. Remember, this is the front, chimney on the right. And now we'll take this piece, we'll slide this in, and essentially we're doing the same thing. We just need to glue this in place. This should be a little bit easier, I think, because the shape's pretty much already there. But let's do what we did before, where we anchor it right in the center. So we'll start with these 2 tabs. Get a little bit of glue on there. I'm going to dab these a little bit and tack them up so that they hold a lot quicker. Okay. Now just these 2 I'm doing like this just because I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so I just push those down right onto the surface of this large piece here that I'm holding with my hand, and I'm going to hold that until I'm sure that that glue has set. There we go. Okay, so now, just as we did before, and I think maybe do it the same way. I'm just going to start on this side here and get my glue onto, we'll do probably 4 tabs at a time. I'll show you here in just a second. Okay, you can see the glue on the 4 tabs. And we'll fold those over. And I should be able to do the same thing here. You may not be able to see this as well, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm pushing from the outside while I'm pushing down from the inside. And just making sure that this section here is really hugging that little skeleton piece. Okay, and there you can see the tabs are now glued onto that surface. And I'm just going to kind of keep on rolling here. Now, you know, my glue is really behaving right now, so I may just kind of finish this off by getting glue on the rest of these tabs. If you're not feeling it and you want to do a few less at a time, feel free. I'm going to just try to get them all done in one shot here. So I've got the glue on the remaining tabs. I'm going to put that down on my surface, and I'm going to tuck these underneath. And you can kind of look through the little hole here just to make sure that you've got everything nice and aligned. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm pushing in on this section here while pushing down with my fingers to make sure that everything is making good contact and it's nice and flush up against that little skeleton piece. And what do you know? I think that's going to work out nicely. and it did. Okay, so that just leaves this side now. Again, we're going to take and flare these out and apply glue to these tabs. I'm just doing little dots. You can see here that I'm not really overly concerned about spreading that glue out too much. And we'll fold it over so that when we put this down on our surface, I'll show you from this side, I can kind of push in while I'm pushing down. And do your best to make sure that it in fact is really hugging that skeleton piece so that everything is nice and lined up. There we go. Wonderful. Let's take a look at our progress. Looking good. Okay, and let's just finish this off. We'll put glue on the remaining tabs here. I think we can get this done in one shot here. Okay, so glue on the remaining tabs. We're going to kind of pre-fold them over a little bit so it's easier to tuck these under. Okay, so you can see here, I'm just going to tuck these, push these over, and then I'm going to tuck those underneath. I'll do it this way so you can see it better. Tuck those under. Make sure they're all tucked under. And then push. Just kind of run your hand along there. Make sure that you're pushing that wall up against that little skeleton piece, and then pushing down with your finger from the inside to get all that to join nicely. And I think that's it. I think that worked, and it did. Beautiful. Okay, so there's our cute little structure, and the rest of it is going to be a breeze. Okay, so we are on the last leg here pretty much. Want to get the vellum on first. Okay, so we've got two pieces of vellum, and they're kind of the same shape, except one's a little bit shorter. The shorter one is going to go on the front of our house. Okay, so we need to glue that down like this. Okay, and the other one's going to go on the other side, obviously. So let's get our glue onto this structure here on the surface, and you want to kind of work around the cutouts like so. And it's okay if we get it in some extra places that maybe it doesn't need to be, but most important thing is when you place this down, just make sure that you're covering up all the little cutouts like that. Pardon my head there. Okay, and then if you need to, you can put this down on your surface and press down from the inside to really get that to hold nicely. Okay, let's take a look. That looks good. Wonderful. And then flip this over, and we're going to do the same thing on this side here. Just making sure that we're covering up all of the little cutouts so that when we put our little light in here, it's illuminating all of these little sections. That's the idea. And just throw a little bit here in the center so it doesn't come peeling off like that. And then if we need to, we can always go in and add a little bit extra glue in any place where maybe we didn't get enough. And just make sure that, again, covering up all of the little cutouts, and you're keeping it within the confines of this whole structure so it's not coming off the edge. And we'll press that down from the inside, and there we go. And that looks good. Okay, perfect. So now, again, remember this is our front. Chimney's gonna go there. Now before we put our chimney through, we do need to put this little liner, not liner, just this little panel. Okay, and that's gonna go on like that to give this the illusion that it's nice and round and not so geometric, I guess. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin by gluing it to the center here. And it may help, in fact, to train this piece a little bit so it's not so flat. I'm just going to take and just kind of train it like that. Okay. Just a tiny little bit. You don't need to go crazy with it. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by just gluing just the top section into place. Okay, so I want to put glue right up to about there, and I'm going to spread that glue out to the very edge so that when we get it in there, it really takes hold. Okay, so just kind of nudge it right into the crack there as far as it'll go. And I'm using these two fingers here to make sure that it's nice and centered. And I'm going to hold that in place until that's fully set before I do anything else. Just want to make sure that that is nice and aligned, nice and centered, and that it takes hold permanently before we move on. It's kind of setting the tone for the rest of this. And now technically, I don't even know if we need to really put glue on the entire thing here. Probably do a little bit around the perimeter and then just focus on gluing it at the bottom, because if we hold it down here at the bottom, it's pretty much taking hold nicely and the shape is perfect. And I think if we overdo it with the glue, it may actually ruin the roundness of this piece. So I'm going to just kind of go sparse on the glue here and just leave it be. Okay, so that should be in place by now. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue around the perimeter here, not a lot, like this. But the most important thing here is to make sure that you get a lot of glue, not a lot, but enough down at the bottom. And I'm going to spread that glue out to the very bottom, very, very edge. And then just take this and nice and taut, oops, don't worry about that. I'm just going to wrap this all the way down and kind of grab it at the bottom and just pop that into place. Make sure it's centered. And just kind of like I'm making a little pie crust. Just getting that right into place. And give that a moment to set. And again, it's okay that it's round like this here and there's a little gap. That's fine because we're going to cover this up with this piece here. You're not even going to see that. Okay? And we want it to be round. So that is by design. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and then our chimney's going to go there in just a moment. But we need to get the other side in place now. I kind of dented this little part up here, so I'm just going to pop that out. Okay, and I want to keep this pattern going in the same direction. I don't know if that's really possible. Oh, there we go. That's fine. Okay, so just like we did the first time, let's get our glue just at the top of this section here. Okay. Go down just a little bit and spread that glue out to the very, very edge so that when we pop it in there and get it into place, it's really going to hold. So just really shove it into that little crack. And if you need, you can use a little pen or something to help you make sure that that's making good contact there. Again, make sure that it's nice and centered right in there. And be patient while that sets. Give that a moment. Don't jump the gun on this one, because this is a very crucial part here. So be patient while that sets. There we go. And just like we did the first time, I'm just going to do a little bit of glue around the perimeter here. And then, of course, a nice amount here at the bottom. I'm going to spread that glue out to the very edge, like so, so that when it does meet the bottom. Okay, so again, just kind of wrap it around, nice and taut, down to the bottom. Line it up with the very bottom there. Make sure it's centered, and just give that a press. And that looks great. And it looks very consistent too on both sides, so that's wonderful. And yeah, that's almost done. Almost done here, guys. Okay. There we go. Okay. So that's looking sharp. I'm trying to determine whether or not I want to do the chimney now or later. I guess it really doesn't matter, honestly. I think we can put the face and the back on first. Okay, so now remember, this is the cutout for the back. So that's going to go on like this. And when we glue this on, we just kind of want to make sure that the bottom is nice and flush with the actual structure. And you do want to try to get it as centered as you can. Okay, and don't try to, well, again, don't set your expectations too high as far as making sure that this all goes on in one shot. I have a feeling that we're going to probably have to go in and do a little bit of painting on this with our glue just to make sure that everything sits nice and uniform. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to get our glue, and I'm going to just start putting my glue onto the perimeter here, and a little bit of it's going to need to go on top of our little vellum piece here. Make sure you don't get any glue into the holes where the vellum is. And I'm going pretty thick here because I'm going to spread this out. Okay, and then you can do a little bit of here. Make sure that you don't get glue onto the actual cutouts. Okay, and I'm going to spread this out to the very edges. Like that. Make sure you got the right piece. I'm going to line up the bottom first. Try to make sure that it's nice and centered and flush with the bottom. And then just pop that into place. There we go. And just kind of work my way around the perimeter. Once we kind of have it in place, you can put it down on your surface and then begin pushing from the inside. Pardon my head there for a second. And again, if we don't have it perfectly lined up, or not perfectly lined up, but if it's not holding all the way around, you can always go in and use our little paint method to ensure that it's making good contact all the way around. But I think we're going to be okay here. We'll take a look at the final result here in just a moment. And there we go. Beautiful. Okay, and I do see some little areas here where it's not holding as well as it probably should, but that's okay. I'll grab my scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue right on the very edge of that, and just kind of shove it into the little areas here where maybe I didn't get enough glue and it's kind of pulling off. And then I'll press that down in that little area, make sure that it makes better contact. Okay, that's pretty much it. And we just have to do the same thing on the other side. Put our little chimney in place and call it a day. That looks nice. And you know what's nice too is the scallop here around the perimeter kind of hides any of the little imperfections you may have. And again, check your work. If there are some areas where it's not sitting nice and flush, just grab a scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue into the little nook and cranny there where maybe it's not making good contact, and just press and hold that down until it is. But I'd say that's pretty darn good. cute. Okay, so same thing on the other side. I'm just going to glue this down. So let's get our glue onto the perimeter here. Again, I'm going to go kind of thick because I'm going to spread this out with my fingers. Just working that perimeter. And be careful up at the top there. We've got those little teardrop shapes where we have some cutouts. I want to make sure we don't get any glue into those sections. And then just throw a little bit of glue in the center here. Make sure that that doesn't come pulling apart. Okay, and I'm going to spread that glue out to the perimeter. I can already tell, just based on how the glue feels, that I'm going to need to go in and do some cleanup here. But again, we're trying to anchor this into position so that it doesn't move too much, so that we can go in and clean some things up if necessary. So again, focus on getting the bottom nice and flush with the actual structure, and then also kind of take a look and use that to help you center this piece as well. That looks good. And if we need to kind of nudge it or adjust it, now's the time. And pop that into place. Run your fingers along the perimeter here. And I'm just kind of adding just a little tiny bit of pressure as I'm pushing down, just to make sure that everything is in place. And that looks great. That looks great. Perfect. All right. It's good to feel confident about what you're doing, because you're going to do your best work if you go into it with a positive attitude, telling yourself that, hey, I can do this. And the beautiful part about this is, again, if for some reason something just doesn't look right, 9 out of 10 times, you can certainly go in and fix things. So it's never really too late to kind of fix things if necessary. That looks great. Okay, wow. Okay, so how does yours come out? Hopefully as good, if not better than mine. And I'm very happy with that. Again, there are some little areas here where I'll probably go in with my scrap piece of paper and my glue and just kind of throw a little extra glue into these little edges here so that you can just push that down, hold it in place, let that really get a good grip so everything looks nice and seamless. And it'll look really nice when all's said and done. Okay, so let's get our chimney in place, and then we just need to pop out our little door and we're done. Okay, so you'll notice inside here, let me see if I can show you. Yep, I'm gonna probably use a pencil here. Okay, so this side here, you see this long side, I'm kind of pointing this way, and then there's a long side here, and then there's two little shorter sections on this side and this side. You'll notice that the chimney is kind of shaped like that too. So let me pop this in so I can show you which and how to set your tabs in place here. So I'm just kind of poking it through the little hole. Let me do this first and then I'll show you. Poking the chimney through the little hole there. Okay, let me spread these tabs out so you can see how they go. Okay, so you see there, the two smaller tabs are going to go on that side, and then the two larger tabs are going to go on this side. Otherwise, if you have it rotated, this large tab is going to have a hard time getting glued here because there's a change in angle there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these tabs in so I can get a little bit of glue on them. And this is going to be kind of hard for me to show you while I'm doing it, so give me just 1 second. Okay, so you can see I just put some glue on the large tab, and I'm going to fold it over onto the inside, the underside of the structure here. I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Essentially what we're doing is just taking those tabs and gluing them to the inside. So you see that tab right there, I just put some glue on it and I pushed it up against the inside there. And now I'm going to fold that tab over. You can see how I folded it over. I'll throw a little dot of glue right onto that tab. And then I'm going to take it. Maybe I could even show you this. with a pen, take it and fold it onto the inside like that. There we go. That actually worked. Okay, there we go. And then just gonna want to throw a little bit of glue on the two small tabs now and just fold those over so that they hold on nicely to the inside so that chimney doesn't come loose. I got a little bit of glue on there, not a lot, and I'm just pushing it up against the inside of my structure here. And there's our chimney. Beautiful. Now again, remember, we're gonna put our little hearts on here now, and we want them kind of going over to the left. You want them going this way, not this way. I want them going this way. So what I'll do is just throw a little bit of glue on these two sections that we did not glue together side by side like the rest of it. Get it on there really nice. I'm gonna dab that a little bit because this is it's a foil, and we'll pop that right on top, get it nice and centered, and hold that in place while it sets. And there's our beautiful little chimney with our little hearts coming out. You can see that. Very cute. And then all that's left to do is throw our, oh yeah, that's gonna need some more time. This darn foil. We'll just throw our little our door on the front that we said we were going to pop dot. You're going to want to take a look at the final photo of this project to see where I added some little embellishments. I'm going to jazz this up with some rhinestones, and then maybe I'm going to throw a little bow on this side here, just to kind of give it a little extra oomph. And that is not wanting to stay. I might need to use some hot glue on this piece. We'll try that again. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the process. Been really excited lately about our YouTube subscribers. I don't know why. I've mentioned this before, but I love seeing the YouTube counts go up. As you can see behind me there, we just hit 26,000. YouTube only reports them in hundreds now, so I don't know the exact number, but we're at 26,000, and if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, I'd love for you to do that, help that number go up. Every time I come in here, you know, I know we get a lot of positive feedback about what we do. But you know, I guess I'm only human too, and it's nice to hear that you guys love what we do and appreciate all the effort. So hopefully that never stops, because it means a lot to us. So, and you know, hitting that subscribe button also means a lot to me personally. So if you can do that, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to need to probably hot glue that on there. But anyway, we'll fix that in a second. And to wrap this up now, let me grab my foam tape. Just going to put this door on. And the cool thing about this foam tape, well, this foam tape roll, is you can kind of cut it to size, however big or small you want. And I'm just going to cut a few tiny little pieces here. Okay, and we'll just get those onto our little door. That one might be a little bit too big. There we go. I'll just wrap this up. And we'll do one there. And I think I need one more tiny one. Actually, this was kind of a backup that I started using because I ran out of my usual ones, but I almost kind of like this more because, again, you can really cut it to size, however big or small you want. You can do the same with the other ones. It's just that they're so bunched together that sometimes you end up having to cut more than you need. Okay, so, and again, this right here, you just need to make sure that you get it nice and centered and that the bottom, the little feet here, are nice and flush with the base of our little house. get that in place, and there you go. Again, we'll throw a little heart rhinestone on there just to kind of give it the illusion of a little doorknob. And of course, this is going to fit nicely on our little platform, and that is it. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the process. If you did, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. That lets me know that you guys enjoy crafting with me. And of course, when you do that, make sure you hit that little bell so that you get notifications when we do release any new paid or free products for that matter, as well as any other helpful videos that we may release. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, we'd love to see it. So head on over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can just use the little URL that you'll see here in front of me or below me. And you can join myself and the 17,000, almost 18,000 plus dreamers that inspire us daily. So happy Valentine's Day to all of our lovely dreamers, and I look forward to crafting with you again.